Welcome to HC266, Fundamentals of Healthcare Regulations and Compliance. In this course, we will be looking at the agencies that create regulations at both the federal and state levels, as well as reform initiatives and compliance programs. We will start out week 1 with review of the history of our healthcare system to see how we ended up where we are now. Here you can see a timeline of the healthcare environment. Starting in the 1900s, we saw the creation and rise to power of the American Medical Association, or the AMA, which became the National Organization for Physicians. This time frame is also the start of organized medicine, with the AMA having a starting membership of 8,000 physicians, which quickly rose to 70,000 physicians as members by 1910. Also in the 1900s, we saw surgery becoming a common treatment protocol, and physicians were no longer expected to provide services for free to hospital patients. Into the 1910s, we began to see hospitals becoming more scientific, with a focus on antiseptics and cleanliness, and a new focus on health insurance programs. The 1920s saw a change in focus, with the cost of medical care becoming more of a concern rather than the cost of wages lost to sickness. The physician's role became more of a cultural influence, with an increase in income and prestige for those in the field. General Motors signed a contract with Metropolitan Life to provide insurance to 180,000 workers, which was the first instance of employer-sponsored insurance. The 1930s ushered in the Great Depression, and the focus moved towards providing benefits for those who were unemployed or of older age. We also saw the passage of the Social Security Act, which eliminated health insurance, but this time frame also saw Blue Cross begin to offer private coverage for hospital care in many states. The 1940s saw the introduction of penicillin, as well as World War II, which led to wage and price controls, so employers began offering health benefits as incentives to compete for workers. During this decade, President Roosevelt asked Congress for an economic Bill of Rights, which would include the right to medical care, and later President Truman offered a national health program plan as a single system that would include all Americans. The 1950s started with healthcare expenditures accounting for only 4.5% of the gross national product, and as the Korean conflict shifted attention from health reform, the system had private insurance for those who could pay for it and welfare programs for those who could not. We also saw the federal government take responsibility for the quote-unquote poor class, and many attempts were made to suggest legislation for different hospital insurance plans with no success. There was also a surge in the types and numbers of medications available to treat diseases, including polio. The 1960s saw the price of hospital care double, and those in society that did not work had issues affording insurance. There are over 700 companies selling insurance, and there is concern about a doctor shortage. President Johnson signed Medicare and Medicaid into a law during this decade. The 1970s saw the creation of Health Maintenance Organizations, or HMOs, when President Nixon changed the name of prepaid group plans, with costs of care escalating due to economic inflation and a focus on technology. In the 1980s, we saw corporations starting to integrate themselves into hospital systems, which consolidated control and led to a shift towards privatization and corporatization. President Reagan changed how Medicare pays to the diagnosis through the use of DRGs instead of payment based upon treatment, and private plans quickly followed suit. Capitation also became more common as a payment mechanism. In the 1990s, costs associated with healthcare are at double the rate of inflation, and managed care expanded as a potential way to control these costs. By the end of the decade, at least 16% of all Americans had no insurance, and reform efforts failed in Congress. In the recent decade of the 2000s, we still saw rising costs, Medicare was viewed as unsustainable, and employer-based insurance systems were in jeopardy of failure as well. This decade also saw an increase in direct-to-consumer marketing, which has shaped many patient decisions. So how has this history led to the current state of our healthcare system? Here you can see a short list of some of the changes outlined by the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, also known as the ACA or Obamacare. The passage of the law in 2010 required all U.S. citizens and legal residents to carry basic health insurance. The law also set requirements for employers to provide coverage, expanded Medicare and Medicaid coverages, and created the health insurance exchanges online. On the right-hand side of the slide, you can see two potential plans that may replace the ACA. The Empowering Patients First Act, created by Representative Tom Price, completely repeals the ACA, removing all mandates and instead providing a tax credit for individuals to purchase coverage. The plan would also create health plans and associations for employers and individuals to purchase coverage. The second plan is called A Better Way, based upon a policy paper written by Speaker Paul Ryan, and contains many of the same points as the first plan. In addition, this plan focuses on changing how Medicare and Medicaid are managed and completely redesigns the two systems. Keep in mind that these are just two of the many proposals that President Trump and Congress will have to review and move forward with the process. We have reviewed the history of our healthcare system, from the beginning through the adoption of governmental programs and into the corporate-focused business system we currently have. We have also looked at recent reform efforts and how they have shaped our system. Lastly, we looked at two of the many plans that may eventually replace the ACA. Knowing how we got to where we are and what reform efforts may come can help us ensure that we are prepared for regulations and compliance.